In this video, we're going to study light to achieve a perfect photo of a white wine bottle. This setup is perfectly suited for beverages and alcoholic products for e-commerce. Here on the table, you can see the bottle we'll be photographing today. I'm using a high table with reflective plexiglass to get a reflection on the bottom. In this setup, we'll be using 3 or 4 lights depending on the result. Of course, if you have fewer lights, you can simply move them around to get different shots to composite later in Photoshop. First, I want to take a shot of the bottle to show how to illuminate it from behind. Instead of using a classic white background to illuminate, I'm illuminating a translucent paper panel from behind, and I'll explain why. First, I'll hang it up like this with a clamp. Once done, you can see on the computer screen that we now have a white background. There's a parabolic reflector on the rear flash, as you've seen, and I'll place a 40-degree grid on the front to create a projected circle and not illuminate the entire white panel. If you don't have this, simply use a small softbox, but this method yields a much more interesting result. Let me show you that if I turn on the pilot light, I get this type of lighting behind the bottle. What does this allow me to do? Look, I'm creating a sort of circle that in turn creates a gradient inside the bottle. This will be much more interesting than having a completely white background. Let's say this should be good for now. I'll turn off the pilot light and let's take the first shot to see what we get. The shooting parameters are aperture between f13 and f16 for a deep depth of field, as we also see through the bottle. ISO value is at 160, shutter speed is 1/125th. Let's see what we get. Okay, this is the starting photo. Obviously there's a glass cap on the top, so it also shows the gradient on the background. So, what's the purpose of this circle we've created? Through the rear panel, we create a nice gradient inside the bottle. If we had the entire panel illuminated, we would simply get a uniform illumination inside the bottle. But this way, we can perceive the bottle's own color and enhance its three-dimensionality. Now we can start adding some lights. Let's start with the main light, which in this case I've decided to position on this side, so on the right side, which is the left side from your perspective. In this case, I could use either a diffusion panel like this one, or directly use the roll with translucent paper. If you don't have this Lee Filter 216, buy it, because without it, you can't take these photos, especially if you don't have at least 3 flashlights. It will be difficult to get a good result. I'll unroll the panel to a convenient point and then secure it with a clamp. Now that we have the panel set up this way, let's place a strip box in front. These are essential when shooting bottle photos in general, because they allow us to have narrow and long light. I'll turn on the pilot light so I can see the direction and shape of the light on the product. As you can see, if you can catch a glimpse in the panel, it's too far from the bottle because we can see this kind of reflection showing the panel. What I can do is definitely raise it a little more to extend its size and try to get closer, as much as possible, of course, depending on the subject we're photographing. Okay, this way you see how large the diffusion surface is. Imagine with a small panel, it wouldn't be possible to achieve the same result. Now let's study the light. I'll move it slowly. Obviously, don't consider that the label is now illuminated by the video light I'm using for the tutorial. But just look at how rotating the light affects the gradient, making it softer. I love this type of lighting with the gradients curved in this way. What we want to achieve is a gradient that slightly surrounds the bottle without touching the edge too much, because otherwise, we lose the definition of the edge itself. I'll also show you that if I raise the light, if I lower it, look how we surround the upper part a little more. So, we need to find a middle ground. Let's say this position might work well. Also, the inclination can vary the result when we illuminate more the bottom and top parts. So let's try to find a good compromise to take this photograph. As for the left light, the power is at 1/8, and then we'll adjust based on the photo we get. Let's take a shot. Okay, look at how beautiful the gradient is. Obviously it's broken at the bottom because it's already reflecting the surface. So the smaller the surface, the more we get a gradient that almost touches the bottle. But it's not important because if we want to extend it, we just need to work on it in post-production. It seems a bit underexposed, so I'll increase it slightly. Of course, we're using a strip box here and a diffusion panel, so we need more light. Let's try 1/4 0.5 per sub. Okay, the bottom part is good, but the top part seems too bright already. Actually, we're at a value of 230. It should be fine, but let's check. I'll set the lens focus to manual, so I'm sure not to have different focus points between the various tests or final shots. Let's take a look so we can understand. It seems perfectly in focus. The area inside the label will be visible like this because unfortunately it has some writing inside that reflects from the rear. If the bottle appears too illuminated in the upper part, we can darken it in post-production. The bottom part is well lit. Let's try to move the light slightly lower and rotate it upwards so we illuminate a bit more at the bottom and a bit less at the top. Okay, look at what I meant by illuminating a bit more at the bottom. If we move it slightly away, we also get a more faded and pleasant gradient. Let's see the result now. Here I'd say we're getting a softer and more interesting light on the bottle. So, I repeat, it's important to recognize all the things to correct when you're in the shooting phase. If we want a wider gradient, of course, we can slightly rotate the light so we have a greater proximity in this fading gradient. As you can see now, the gradient is brighter at the back and fades away. It's not visibly clear because, as I said, the bottle will illuminate from the inside, but I actually preferred it softer, without this stronger white part at the back. So when I just move the light slightly away and increase the power a bit, because I think we can go up to 1/4 0.8. Okay, look, we already have an interesting illumination. I repeat, the cutoff part of the gradient at the bottom will be corrected in Photoshop later. Okay, now we can move to the other side. Here too I use a strip box. I'm not a fan of having symmetrical light on the bottle, so the same light on the right and left, because I still need to maintain the product's three-dimensionality. We'll illuminate directly from the front what is the bottle. Let's see what happens. Obviously, if we point the light directly like this, it will be a little clearer. I'll turn on the pilot light. Look, obviously, we would simply get the reflection of our strip box in front of the bottle, which is not interesting at all. So what we can do, if we really need to illuminate the bottle from the front, is to use a fill panel like this. Look, the further away I move it from the bottle, the softer light I create on the front. The closer, the harder the light becomes. So let's try to find the right position. Another stand, obviously, buy stands and everything you need. To take a photo like this, look how much time I'm taking. I'm using a magic arm to hold the panel in place. Let's take a photo to see what we're getting now. Here, look, in the bottle, we can see just a little of the panel while we're starting to lighten the product's label. See? But we want more illumination, so I'll increase the light from 1/32 to 1/16. Let's take another shot. Okay, let's analyze the label. Despite creating a gradient with the strip box, the opposite light illuminates the panel, and since the product is made of glass, it reflects. In this case, we could solve it with masks from different shots in Photoshop. Let me show you that if you didn't want to use this light in this way, I'll turn it off, so let's take a shot. If you like this illumination and only want to lighten the label, we use another light, in this case the Godox D100 Pro set to 1/64. I'll turn on the pilot light and show you how we lighten the label with a shot. Look, we're lightening it, we can lighten it even more. So from 1/64 I'll go to 1/32. Since it's a single shot, it doesn't make sense to set up another stand. I'll hold it quickly. So, as you can see, we're lightening the label simply by maintaining a setting with lateral light and light from behind. We can activate light C, the light on the right. Let's redo the same shot so I can show you the difference. So in this case, we maintain the light on the label, but we also have a light on the right side that you can see. So this is just the bottle with lateral light on the left, light from behind. This is the bottle illuminated with the AD100 Pro, and this is the bottle illuminated with light also on the right side. Let's take a general look at the bottle details. Actually, I haven't developed the raw file yet because I'm waiting to get an interesting light. But as you can see, the bottle seems well illuminated to me. Let's make sure the label is perfectly centered. It seems a few millimeters shifted more to the left. So let's redo this series of shots. Okay, so we have a perfectly centered bottle now. Of course, if the label was applied crookedly, we can try to do some magic tricks in Photoshop. What I don't like about this bottle is that there's this detail that you can see through the hole, but then you can also read the back of the label. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about it, but in general. When shooting wine bottles, if the label on the back doesn't have this type of detail, it should be completely removed. So keep that in mind. And one last thing I want to do now is to take a shot without using this panel on the right, because even if I turn off the right light, you can still see it, because it reflects the light from the left. Let's also take a shot with the label lightened, just to have the option to choose whether we want the light or not. Okay, I'd say this is the best setup we can achieve for this bottle. If we want, we also have the choice with the side panel. I didn't do the white balance with the gray card, which we can do now. So I'd say this is definitely an excellent result as a final photo, and then we have the possibility to lighten the label a little on the right side. Obviously, imagine that this shot will be masked, so it won't be used throughout the photo. But I think even this version is not bad, but in general, let's try to do a slight development. If we increase the brightness a little, lowering the highlights so we don't burn the details on the label. Let's open the shadows a little so we recover the internal detail and push it a bit in white. Let's make sure, reading the values, that there's no 255. As you can see, it seems like excellent lighting. Here we have a very light white, but it's fine as a label detail. If we want, we can lighten it, so as a final shot, I'm very happy with this result. And as you can see, we use 3 or 4 lights according to our preference. If you have any doubts or questions, let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel to support me. See you in the next video. Greetings from Marco.